So I've been watching you, and I've noticed two things. First, I've seen your struggles to be the community you aspire to be. And second, and you may have noticed the first thing and you may have missed this, I see the beauty of this community. This beautiful, strong, deep, sometimes struggling community. So I decided to spend a few minutes this morning talking about the draft mission and vision statement, which I have seen emerge from you and your beautiful life together and your impressive struggles together. So the mission and vision drafting team came up with 3 ideas to inspire spiritual and ethical growth, to prepare for service, and to heal the world. So, just a word or two about each of these. I saw the struggle around spiritual and ethical growth. It was around the word spiritual. Now, spiritual to some means some sort of theistic or beyond the scientific understanding of nature deity. It implies for some that kind of a meaning. Now, I think that was actually more of a meaning that was common, say, 30 to 50 years ago, because now we hear so much about people who are spiritual but not religious, and they reject religious doctrine, but they feel a deep spirituality, and they yearn to deepen it. These are the people who are perhaps with a Buddhist sensibility, engaging in meditation practice on a daily basis, attending our Sangha. And for this other group that views spirituality as really something that they can't align themselves with, they might actually be described as religious but not spiritual. Because they believe in the community, this faith community, this community of people who aspire to live together according to our UU principles. They are religious in the communal sense, in the community sense, not in the doctrinal sense. And so, even though I personally think that spiritual growth means increasing spiritual maturity, the ability to manage emotions, to be compassionate even when people are angry or disagreeing, I thought it was an absolute stroke of genius when Dave Wicke said, well, why don't we say spiritual and ethical growth? Because that draws the circle wide. That includes everyone. And then what do we mean by ethical growth? Well, I've seen that happen here. Just in the 2 years that I've been here, I've seen how this community has generated new insights into privilege, white privilege in particular, but all kinds of privilege. Insights into gender identity, migrant status, and what it means to be allies to those who are suffering or oppressed. Being allies means listening to those who are most affected by injustice or oppression. I've seen that understanding come to life vividly and boldly here. It's expressed in our Faith in Action partnerships, where we're guided by the partner, by Family Promise, which is an interfaith effort that looks to the needs of the people who are homeless. And I've seen it emerge as an understanding that's shared with everyone in the accompaniment journey of Mike and Karen Lauer, who have sponsored 2 asylum seekers and then written about it every week for more than half a year. At Terry Swanson's memorial service, one of the things that came up was how originally, maybe this was 30 years ago, Terry had been opposed to the idea of using gender-neutral language. So instead of saying man and mankind, saying humanity and humankind. And he believed it as a matter of grammar, as a matter of the meaning of words. And then he realized that he cared more about the people who were hurting because of the use of gender binary words, words that included only men. And he realized that for him, being compassionate and caring and listening to his friends who were hurting was more important than any rules of grammar or semiotics. And we've seen that understanding emerge too these days. Literally, I have been on this journey with you as the people among us who are gender non-binary or transgender people have taught us how meaningful it is to them when we put our pronouns on our name badge and we say, I'm Reverend Jennifer Brooks. My pronouns are she, her, and hers, because it's a signal that we're paying attention to their needs. I didn't have that understanding when I arrived. Thanks to all of you, I have it now. This is what we mean by ethical growth. And maybe there's a little spiritual maturity in it too. The second element of the draft mission statement is prepare for service. Now, this is such an interesting change from the t-shirt slogan that includes prepared to serve. And I think it emerges from a sense which may be more vivid now than ever in the life of this community, a sense that we are not prepared. And honestly, we are not. Despite our best efforts, the world is still on fire. At times, I feel deeply and with terror that I am not prepared. And then something else happens, and there is some new challenge I must rise up to meet. I am not prepared. And I am sorry that the world is still on fire, despite all the work of generations. We must prepare to serve in new ways, to put the small fires out when we can, to acknowledge our love and responsibility even in the face of the fire and the reality that we are not prepared. We can't just give up. That is not a satisfying answer. So we must prepare to serve. And we must prepare to serve in ways that we cannot at this moment even envision. This is the nature, the emergent nature of what it means to be in a Unitarian Universalist community today. We don't always know just what to do, but that won't mean that we're lost in the wilderness. We rely on the certainty beneath the foundation of our values and ethics. So we seek to equip ourselves with the tools we need. Some examples, you've probably seen announcements. Maybe some of you have attended this welcoming webinar that helps us to learn how to be more welcoming to those who are transgender people among us. There's a nonviolent communication seminar, a workshop coming up that Reverend Aaron Gingrich is going to lead. That's an amazing way to prepare to serve, to learn how to use nonviolent communication methods in our homes, in our workplaces, in our congregations, and out in the world of fire. And finally, heal the world. Heal the world, starting with ourselves. A necessary first step to healing the world is to recognize our own woundedness and start healing within our own hearts. One example of what is happening already here, and I think one reason why this idea of healing emerged in the mission development process, is that groups like the Anti-Racism Collaborative are reading books like My Grandmother's Hands and learning how trauma, old trauma, can still live in the body and affect our lives today. We've had members reaching out to be part of the resilience community that recognizes the way in which all of us carry trauma and start thinking about how we can make our congregations places where we can heal that trauma. And in conversations before and during candidating week, we've seen the visible harm still present that some of us experienced in our childhood religious traditions. The healing within our walls begins when we build a resilient church community that acknowledges and heals trauma, that honors covenant, and begins again in love. One of the things that's happening now, and it's very under the radar, is conversations about restoring relationships that were damaged, impaired in various ways during some of the anxiety around candidating week. And some of that went on. I saw, I wasn't supposed to be in the church, but I was reading Facebook. And I saw not only the anxiety bubbling up from those old wounds around religious tradition, but I also saw the ways that many people here reached out and in a compassionate and loving way talked about what Unitarian Universalism is, what this community is like. And we're reassuring that people who had found a safe haven here would not be lost and abandoned. That was awesome. Awesome. That's a community that is resilient, that reaches out to heal trauma, that holds others who are struggling or suffering. It was a beautiful thing to see. When we falter, when we slip out of covenant, we begin again in love. This is our Unitarian Universalist tradition. We don't do confession. We don't do a absolution by someone in a position of theological authority. We do beginning again in love, covenant and returning to covenant. By covenant and the movement forward of one right action and the next, we know that one day we will arrive at home. Home. The beauty of community, the beauty of this community, is that as a community, we begin again, and from the pieces, we build something new. When we love one another, when we begin again in love, when we support and hold those of us who are most anxious, traumatized, and afraid, we emerge stronger and more resilient after a struggle. We emerge more united as a community. And I see that happening here. And it is beautiful. And then let's talk about healing the world. And I just want to say, be bold. Someone has to heal the world. Why not you? Teresa Soto, my good friend and a UU minister at the Oakland Church, says, you are here to put out the ravenous flames and heal the world. And some other congregations, some other UU congregations include heal the world in their mission statement. And if we start by noticing the beauty of this UU community, we might notice that even when we fail to live up to our aspirations, well, they are, after all, aspirations. So we fail forward. The kind of community we're creating here that has been constantly created and revised and created anew since 1877 is remarkable. It's amazing. And not just because you have Bruce Martin at the piano. It's definitely not something to undervalue. Consider our covenant, our bond of union, and our 7 principles. In essence, we promise ourselves to the idea that we are each and all human beings. Perhaps it is community in the best sense, the most beautiful sense, that is what being a part of this First Unitarian Church means to each of us. What is here? The aspirations we kindle in our hearts, the vision that is like the sun after days of rain. This community, this is shared hope. It's hope that if we trust each other and trust our values and keep returning to covenant, keep growing and preparing and healing from the inside out, then the world will immediately become a better place in many tiny, immeasurable ways. And it's a hope that one day the world will be measurably and visibly better. But for this to happen, we must be bold. We cannot say, oh, healing the world is too big. That chalice we light every Sunday, that chalice is a reminder that what flame we keep inside us cannot light the way. The flame we hide inside these walls cannot light the way. The flame we tamp down until it is too small to make a difference cannot light the way. The light, our light, this community's light, must spill to shine. And so this community, in 2 years of transitional learning that on occasion became tumultuous, this human, flawed, amazing community with its human, flawed, amazing ministers and its human, flawed, amazing leaders, this community evoked from deep within itself a mission statement that is a bit daunting, but it's not far off from where you already are or from where you've been, and certainly not far from where you're going. Inspire growth in all the ways that human beings can grow. Prepare for service in new ways for each new challenge we face. And beginning with ourselves, heal the world. Enough is enough. Let's spill the light. It's right here. Let it out.